welcome if you're coming in the room. We're just getting started here. We have so
Hi,
excited.
everyone.
We're so excited.
So,
I'm Catherine White. We have Fennell Norton and Michele Hornish, and we're so excited to get things started. So get comfortable. We were just talking about the time change.
yeah, I didn't even notice it. So yeah,
You didn't?
no.
No, see, I noticed it in a different way because I woke up and I thought that I had gotten a really, really great night's sleep.
Well,
I was very proud of myself because I wake up most mornings at like 5 or
wow,
maybe a little bit
great.
earlier. And I
Yeah.
woke up and it was like 5:45 and I thought, good job, Michele. You slept so late. Good for you. And then I remembered and thought, oh, well,
Well,
that's
that is a really great opposite way to think of it. You're an early riser, so you thought, I slept a little longer. Look at me. And then tonight, when we went out for our walk, I was like, oh my gosh, it's time to get on the call tonight. So I just want to pitch it over to the whole team. We're so excited. People are coming in the room. We're sitting down with Michele Hornish. I'm going to pitch it over to Michele, to Fennell to get us started tonight. We're just so glad to see friends come in.
Yes, I am so excited that Michelle was able to join us. So we were having a conversation about something else. And I said, Michelle, we do this thing at 7 o'clock and we would love to have you come on. And she's like, I would love to do it. I would love to do it. So we'll probably call her often. But for those of you who don't know, Michelle writes a podcast, Small D's Done, which is really wonderful. And she's a beautiful writer. Most of the time she has me in tears. But she's
oh.
also, you really do. And
Hmm.
she's also the executive director of Every State Blue. And so her goal is always to make sure that people run everywhere. And those who have the least opportunity because they're in such red places, she makes sure that they have funding. But tonight is extra special because it's International Women's Day. And so we are going to just get started talking the talk. So what do you guys want to talk about tonight? Michelle, we'll start with you. What's on your mind?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, all kinds of things are on my mind. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate that very much. I've been thinking a lot about, International Women's Day, at healthcare, the movie 9 to 5. All these things have sort of been, bouncing around in my head all day because yeah, and I was asking this on social media, and folks who follow me on Substack might know that I actually do start most of my mornings on notes, posting a couple of thoughts and things that I'm thinking about. And this morning, or yesterday morning, I posted something about how healthcare in the United States, how it traps people, our healthcare system, and not having universal healthcare, how it traps people in toxic workplaces and sometimes toxic relationships, and that it just is completely unfair. And that sentiment took off on Threads and on Substack, and I feel like that's really like a uniquely American way of having to deal with modern life.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you started there because I'll say this. Since Roe v. Wade was overturned, 50 Planned Parenthood centers have closed.
Mhm.
And so that makes it so much more difficult for women in terms of just that kind of healthcare. But I also
Exactly.
wanted to say when we think about the gap in terms of those who have and those who have not, and we think about the wealth gap, that if people didn't have to worry about insurance and we just focus on everybody having universal health care, just imagine the money that would put in people's pockets and imagine the freedom that it would give to women. Just saying.
Exactly. Exactly. And when I posted that sentiment on Threads, story after story, hundreds of comments, people saying, I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I had to stay with this terrible abusive relationship for 3 years because I couldn't get out because I needed health care. Another person who was talking about, the disability community and how the disability community has difficulty with this very same thing with toxic families having to work when traditional work doesn't work for them. There are so many different ways that, women and, marginalized communities are trapped. We're
Mhm.
sort of trapped in the land of the free. So I think you guys are kind of getting a preview of what Tuesday's Substack post is probably going to be about, because this has just been rattling around now in my brain and thinking about how right now what we're seeing with the administration and how they're handling everything, including policies here at home, but also a war abroad, and how they're putting all of their resources into that sort of world compared to what people here at home actually want, what people are craving, what they want. We want the freedom to choose our own jobs, our own relationships, how we live our lives, right? We want the ability to choose those things for ourselves. But the system as it's been created uh, doesn't allow for that. And then when we ask for that, they say we can't afford it.
Right.
But then we can see that they are affording $1 billion a day war that none of us want.
Easily too. Could I ask a question to Michelle on that kind of note or thread about the quality of life and an imagination and creativity of people that when we're so always bogged down with just you know like you said, not having this universal health care. So we're always just bogged down with jobs we don't want, um, just a lot of energy, just worrying that we really lose, I think, in this country. People don't realize the loss of energy and creativity by just forcing people not to have access to care. And what are your thoughts on that when you think about, just in that sense of when people can go off and be a painter, but they can't even at 65 because they have to worry about the healthcare aspect rather than maybe what they can bring to the table,
Absolutely. There's a loss of opportunity,
right?
right? There's a loss of joy, right? So people stay in jobs that they don't want to stay in because they feel like they have to in order to keep the health care that they need in order to survive in our system. And there were plenty of people who were giving comments, stories like that, where they, would have gone back to school, would have taken a different job, a better job, a job that had a better fit, more flexible schedule, but they couldn't take it because the healthcare was not as good as the healthcare at this other toxic job that they wanted to leave, right? Toxic workplaces where people who are 55 years old, who are the vice president, had tons of experience, clearly could go off and do their own thing, but they're being yelled at every day and they stay there. This was a woman, right? She stayed there because she needed the health care. And she's 55 years old. She's got 10 years to go before she's, in Medicare, and people holding on for
Right.
dear life, right? Until they can qualify for our universal health care option. And if they were given the option to leave early and go part-time and maybe retire early, and they had because we had universal health care, they would, and that would open up their job to someone who's younger, open up opportunities for younger workers. I mean, there are so many different
Too
ways
much.
that this would be actual freedom, that it's been interesting to me to see how many people have sat up and said, "Oh, that would be the kind of freedom that I really wanna have." And women in particular, right? Because I think that healthcare for women is it's important for everyone, but oftentimes women are thinking about healthcare in terms of, like you were saying, Fennell, Planned Parenthood's opportunities and options. We're thinking about it in kind of a different context.
Yeah.
So
This is what I wanted to say. So we know that at the end of the day, women really do shape politics or can shape politics. But I'm not sure that we've been using our power the way that we have the ability to use it. So, for example, when we have referendums on abortion rights, we know that in some states that typically go red, we find that these referendums actually come through. But we don't carry it all the way through where we're actually going to have the shift in policies that we need. So I'm wondering if there is a different story that we should think about telling in places where we are speaking in ways that women who might be um, under the foot of a bad relationship or a bad job or a bad anything, where based on the way that we talk about the way some of these policies work, that they can see their life changing by trusting that women can get them there or that the way that women think about it. Because we do know that when women are elected in terms of policies that really
Mhm.
support communities and families, that women elected do much better in that category than men do. I'm just saying it's facts. It's fact. So I'm just asking, what do you guys think about the way that we talk about some of these policies and the way that we framed it, not as a way of freedom for women, but should we be talking about it a different way?
Are you talking about in particular the abortion debate?
Well, not even just the abortion debate. I think what the conversation that we've been having about your jobs, about when you turn 55, 65. Just imagine if we had the way that are having this conversation about the freedom that universal health care would give to women in terms of their job opportunities, in terms of when they decide to retire, when they decide to leave a company, how it leaves room and opportunity for younger workers to come in. While maybe if you're 55 or 65, you decide that you're going to open a business because there's entrepreneurial opportunities for you based on the fact that we can spend $1 billion a day on a war that we didn't ask to be in. What if we were able to talk about the ways that $1 billion a day could be used to make the lives better of Americans?
I certainly think that talking about the cost savings of not being in a war right now that probably is going to be a winning argument. I think actually that a lot of times, at least in the red areas, I have some conservative family members.
Mhm,
And I'm really surprised when I have engaged them in conversations about this kind of thing, that really the same kinds of message work with them, the
mm,
same kinds of messages work with them as work with Democrats. And that is that it's no longer left versus right, it's up versus down. That
Yes.
this really is a system that was created and has been perpetuated by people who benefit from the system. The system itself is working as the system was designed. It is not designed to help you. It is not designed to benefit you. It is designed to help the people at the top. I think that's actually true here, right? If they wanted to fix it, it would have been fixed. They would have fixed it by now. I was watching. I mentioned to you, Fanel, earlier that I watched, the 9 to 5, that movie 9 to 5.
Such a good movie. With her nails, she did Dolly Parton's nails make the beat of that song.
It's so great. But the same issues that they were having back in 1980. That movie was made in 1980 or was released in 1980. The
Right.
same issues that they talk about in that movie are the same issues that we have today.
And I would just say that that whole scene, now that you brought up that the film, and it's such and because that film is based on, I think it was the women's union, right? That was about that, the actual character, but that when women took over, it's just a great lesson with women's leadership, like in Fennell's words of like when women really get elected, they champion policies that really make a difference. And it's not this sort of
Precisely.
like women are better at this or that. It's just our perspective is different. So when they started the childcare at the work office, remember they did flexible hours, and then everything was running so great and it was so awesome. And then till the bad boss comes out, comes back, and but the company's so happy because what? It's successful.
Right.
They're really doing well. And I think that, like Fennell said, what can we do to talk differently about it? And I think we have tried. I think what we see is sort of the messages that's happening for like the on the right side, the conservative side, or from this administration that's so terrible, is that they know there's a problem and they know that there's graft, but instead of really pointing out who's doing it, they're blaming immigrants. And that's what I see on talk shows, is that people understand that somebody is ripping them off. But
Right.
then what's happening is because these people are so nasty about how they want to solve these problems. They want people to forget about who's really stealing from them and go after and round up immigrants. And that's what we're really seeing. The answer is really kind of not the right answer we'd like to see. Yet, I think when we do have conversations with our friends and family, for instance, my girlfriend that lives in Fredericksburg, Virginia, her daughter-in-law has to go all the way to Richmond to find care for her because there's no women gynecologists locally, or there's a lack of them. She has to drive an hour and a half, right, in these areas that there's not access. Yet they're voting against their best interests. So you're like trying to figure this conversation out, right?
Well, let me. I know I'll let you go, Michelle, but I want to go to something you said and something that Catherine said because this is just something that's been just really nagging at me. So we talked with your friend Jess Piper on Friday,
Yes.
and we talked a lot about news deserts that people just aren't able to get the news. We also talked about the fact that 60% of people don't really pay attention to political news, and policy is certainly political news. And so when if I had someone having the conversation with you, Michelle, I'm sure that they would be thinking a bit different. And what I think I'm trying to get at is when we talk about this messaging and who's talking, I mentioned on Friday, um, Linda Hersham, who I talk about all the time. And one of the things that she talked about was during the abolitionist movement is that they had women. She was saying talk and knock far and wide, but it was really about women who went to the doors of other women while their husbands were at work. And they had these deep conversations with women, and the women changed their minds, and then they changed their husbands' minds. And so I say that to say, and Michelle, you wrote an article some time ago that I am still pushing and pushing and pushing. It was about the Montgomery boycott. And it
Yes.
was about the fact that
Mhm.
these women stayed up all night long making these flyers that they distributed all through Montgomery County to make people know what was important about that boycott. So we can't control what's on social media because the algorithms are not really our friends. And so what I'm asking is for you all to think about and have this conversation with me is there an innovative approach that we're not thinking about? I know the storyteller projects are there, but is there something to think about? I have a hard time thinking that the women that we're looking for would look at you having this conversation and say, "Yeah, but I'm still gonna vote for Donald Trump," or, "Yeah, I'm still gonna vote for someone who's not gonna give me universal healthcare." I have a really hard time believing that. So because I have a hard time believing that, I have to believe in order to maintain my hopefulness that there is something that we are missing that we have to find in a way that we communicate with women who have the ability to shape how this country goes forward? That's the question I'm asking.
So, I mean, there's so many different things, so many different threads that are all coming together in that, I think. And so I'm excited about answering this question for so let me see if I can unpack it. So, I think that one of the things that's happening right now, and this goes back to something that we were talking about just a few minutes ago, which is there's always people right now in America are upset for a whole host of reasons, right? Life is not the way that we wanted life to be. Uh, Housing is not affordable. We don't have a living wage. People don't have health care. We don't have, maternity or paternity leave. We don't have parental leave. Education is too expensive, all kinds of problems, right? People know that, and people are clamoring for answers, absolutely clamoring for answers. And they don't have answers. They don't have policies that answer any of those things. So instead, they give people a scapegoat. They give people a cultural issue that they point to and they say, now we're going to focus on this. And they get folks' attention. It's just their attention, though, to move in that direction. And that, I think, is where what you're talking about, Fennell, comes in, because that's where we can come in and say, wait, they are trying to focus your attention on somebody else. And that is a distraction, right? But we actually can sort of take that on, I think, as activists, as people who understand that this is their messaging, this is their only play. And they've been pushing that play for decades now, right? This has been what they've been doing since the 80s. We know this is the script that they're going to run. So that's where we can come in and say, no, you're outraged for a reason. They have been in charge in these red states and now in the country for so long. They've been promising you that this trickle down is going to come, man, and it never shows up. We know that that's a lie now. And they're lying to your face. And they're trying to get you to not focus your attention on that by giving you this other cultural issue and telling you that somehow immigrants are to blame. How on earth are immigrants to blame for this? They're not.
Right.
And now we're at such a fever pitch with so many things happening, and now with
With
an
the war.
illegal or an
Yes.
unconstitutional war that nobody wants, right? Now we're at such a fever pitch. I feel like this might be a moment where that message from us, if given by so many voices in
Right.
so many different ways, from so many different angles and people in their lives, social media, at church, at school, at the workplace, if we all start speaking up more and saying, see, this is what we're talking about, guys. Like we can all work together and we can change this, but we have to do it together. Maybe this is actually how this fever breaks.
Okay,
Yeah.
Catherine, I don't know if you
No,
have
I'm yeah,
something,
I'm
but
no, I well, go ahead. I do, but I'm flowing with it.
I
Does
know.
that make sense,
So
though? I
well,
mean, that
Well, we thought
it
the
does make it
fires the fever would break, and it did. I'd say to you that we're at such a pitch now, and I'll say that I think we all know in this room that it's such a dangerous, beyond dangerous place we're at right now that I am surprised we're here this quickly and so recklessly. And, with that, we could talk for hours about that. I would say when we're talking about even women in this administration and the care we would need. And I know that when we see the first strike that hit a girls' school,
ugh,
and we see that what I was telling my husband it is about when I think about International Day, day and about women and girls. And I said to my family the other day about when war happens, how women really suffer and children the most, right? And we even know in these detention centers where immigrants our neighbors are being taken that women's needs aren't being met, menstrual pads, that really daily of being a woman where have special needs and they're humiliating you by giving you nothing to take care of yourself with. And this is real things happening. Nursing a baby, having your period, this kind of care that you may need because you are pregnant. Then you're in a war and all these things for your baby you need and for your body. And then you have this administration's really, when we say war and women is really true, but I'll say the vindication of some things about how when I see their narrative blow out, like I don't know if when we saw Pete Hegseth come out, how he talked about this bravado, almost like a cartoon and video. But what broke was when the news, when this pilot was down, this woman pilot in Kuwaiti comes out of the water. And it's not this cartoon. It's not this big man. It's a woman pilot
yes.
that is in a fucking war zone coming out of the water. And the people on the ground are like, oh my God, thank you. And are you safe? Can I help you? But boy, did that break their imagery of what the hell is happening, that women are in the front lines, women are in the ranks. And so I know I've taken us on a little tangent, but I'm thinking in the sense of how we need to break the messaging sometimes is the story right before us, and not to let some of it get knocked off, like from the healthcare thing that we were doing so well on, keeping these things really center, and with this war, watching the money. And I would say what we could do about it is tell our elected not to give a cent to this war. Go into the ICE budget, take all that money, as some of our teammates had said on the show on Friday. We should not be funding this war at all. And I think this is something that may be interesting to our audience tonight when we see these votes in Iraq, when 20 Democrats voted against it. They'll go down in memory as standing on where we needed to be in this moment. And I'm hoping that when we talk about going forward in this narrative, that we make sure our elected stand firm and not give this illegal war or these buffoons, I don't even know what to call them, in charge of our country right now. It's kind of scary, but I don't know what your
Yeah,
thoughts on some of that. But I mean, with the women warriors, I was like, she coming out of the water. I'm like, okay, Pete, go ahead, buddy. You know, woman's energy, just like,
yeah. We were talking earlier about knowing your audience and that
yes,
sometimes we're not really sure who our audience is. And so you might want to speak to what Catherine is talking about. However, I also think that in terms of even knowing our audience and what they're paying attention to and where we can lead them. And so I will come back to you all to say on
yeah.
these issues that we've been talking about that women deal with every single day, how do we keep our attention there? Because they do want to keep us going in all these different directions, which is what this war is, unless we can figure out how to use it to our
Well, it's a big
advantage.
one. Could I say for now, one of our audience members said, it's Karen, Karin. I believe from the start that it will be a woman who will fix the system.
Yeah, it's true.
I keep saying that. So except we're gray-haired by the time it happens. I do say,
I
I
have
think it was
tried.
who was it? Gloria Steinem who said it will be a bunch of gray-haired ladies who will save the world. And so it doesn't have to be them. It can
Well,
be
we're
all
working on it. I mean,
we are. But I think what I wanna get to is I do think that messengers are important, and when
Yes.
we had our call on Friday, we had "I'm Every Woman" was the theme, it was one of the songs in there. And Michelle, you said something about every woman across the country talking, having the same message. I do think that that has to happen in every state, and I do think it requires women like you, and Catherine and others to be the leaders of those women who are talking about these things, who are giving the example for other women in terms of how we talk about them. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, when we say it's gonna be a woman who does this, it will be women, but we have to figure out how to talk to those women and
Right.
bring them along to what is actually gonna make the changes, and it won't be tied to a political, party, it will be tied to what is gonna be the right things for your family, and that's the piece that I think is missing in all of this, that we can't get dissuaded, that, I keep on saying that one of the things I would have wanted to see is every kind of woman, every size woman, every race woman, on a stage
Yeah.
together talking about these issues and how together we save the world, and on Friday, I said, Calamity Jane said, "If you wanna be a legend, go be one." So I'm asking women to go be legends.
Could be like,
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think people need to realize is that we are all strategic messengers, right? I want women to feel empowered to give that message to their friends, to
Mhm.
talk to their families, right? Because I think sometimes we're waiting for other people to tell us exactly what to say or to tell us, how we should message something. But really, you are an expert on your own community. You're an expert in your own family. You know what road is dilapidated in your community, right? You know what has been left. What infrastructure is fallow now, right? So we're the ones that can go in and start describing to our families and our friends and our communities, our schools, churches, what have you, what could be better, what needs to be better. So validating people's experience and helping them understand, where we can get better. And I'll say this too: if they weren't worried that women were the ones who are going to make this change, they wouldn't be doing so many things to try to keep us from voting.
Say
that
that.
is true. Say it again. Yeah.
If they weren't worried about us, they wouldn't be doing so many things to try to keep us from voting. So I'm talking about the SAVE Act. I'm talking about all of the different things that they're trying to do right now to keep women quiet.
Yes, for sure. No,
So you
I
just made us quiet.
well, we're just
I
it's
did.
just
I just kinda made you quiet. I'm sorry about that. I
no,
didn't
no.
necessarily mean to drop a truth bomb, but I'm just saying, if to the extent that that actually empowers you even more,
Yeah,
try to remember that. They if you were not so effective at voting, at leading your community, at getting out there and making change, they wouldn't be so laser focused on you. So let that be internal fuel when you feel sometimes like whatever it is that you're doing is insignificant. It's not. It's so significant that you are now causing a world superpower to focus its attention on keeping you from voting.
Yep.
That is remarkable.
it really is. And that is we were talking today about the Voting Rights Act, whether or not what's gonna happen in the Supreme Court with the Voting Rights Act. It is all these things. It is because, which sometimes is hard to believe, it is more people who think and believe in humanity the way that we do, which is
Yes.
why they have to suppress the vote.
Yes.
It
Yes,
is more about that.
on policy, we win, right? Like, when people get out and vote in droves, we win. Look at everything that's happened in all these red districts, in all these special elections, right? Taylor Remitt down in Texas, right? He won in, what was it, a Trump plus 17 district, and he won by
Yeah,
17. I mean, it's just these massive flips. We have the potential to just blow things out of the water, and I just wanna see us run for broke, right? Like,
I
let's
agree.
go.
Yeah, I agree. I always say when we say, "Oh, we're gonna try to get to 52 seats," I'm like, "No, we should scare them to death and say, we are running everywhere." I've said for years, "Why
Right.
do we only talk about, well, this is gonna be a hard Senate race?" No, you go
No,
everywhere. Go everywhere.
go. I mean, this is a historic election because we are in a historic moment. We are in historic trouble,
We are.
right? So let's be honest with people. Go for broke. Validate that we are not where we should be. Where we are in America right now isn't fair.
Right.
We didn't ask for this. Nobody voted for this. Nobody wanted this. So let's get out
Maybe,
there and make it
Stephen
happen.
Miller.
Go for broke.
Maybe Stephen Miller. And I'll say that one
Maybe.
I think we should end with Dolly Parton is probably one of my favorite iconic just champions besides our usual, to end on Women's International Day. Some great people like Sojourner Truth. Truth is powerful and it prevails. Fannie Lou Hamer, nobody's free till everybody's free. And Dolly Parton, and I'm not sure what her famous quote is, but that just kind of kindness and strength and her truth and that authentic stuff, how she leads. We need more of that. I say just more of Dolly. And when we talk about bringing women together and that kind of power, and you look at the 9 to 5 show, which just cracks me up of how those women plotted together to work together. And I think there's a little bit of that bringing all these different women together, even though we may, women on different sides of the spectrum coming together to solve problems. It's because they were all impacting each one of them. This war is going to impact people's children, going to impact their sons and daughters overseas. If their kids are wearing a uniform, you better damn straight know that people, especially women, are going to pay attention. And this could be a time where we can sort of work together to rein in the dangerous things we're seeing. And I think the military obviously is paying attention, the inside game of how bad it is. And I think as women, rallying around that may be very powerful.
I think that's
Michelle, I want you to have the last word. So
yes, of course. Yeah. Working 9 to 5. You're going to sing for us?
Yeah, I'm not gonna sing 9 to 5 for you because I am not, but in this world, I do think that we have some choices in how we decide to live our lives, right? And everyone should try to live their life more like a Dolly Parton, right? Live your life such that people would mourn you when you're gone, right? Like Dolly Parton, and not look for your obituary in the paper like they do for some other people who are in this administration. But also, as always, if folks are subscribers to Small Deeds, they know that one of my big roles in life is to try to get people to take those small actions daily to make their lives better in the future. And that's where I think, Fennell, your ideas about talking to people, talking to regular folks that you are in contact with in your everyday, I think that's so impactful. And so if folks can take anything from this conversation and from International Women's Day, I hope that it is that you carry those kinds of conversations forward in your regular life, that, with your women friends, with your female besties, even if you're not normally having political conversations with them, which I imagine a lot of us are having a lot more political conversations these days, that you feel comfortable saying, it's time for us to all, get together and start talking about all of this with everyone. If each of us does that, if each of us seeds that, imagine how fast this can spread, right? We can have conversations that breed conversations that then breed conversations, and everyone is a node in this democracy that we need to be building. And so kind of a democracy of communication. So
or Michelle, we could just take over like a 9 to 5 and just
do that too. I mean, I'm game. If you guys are game, I could probably move room in my schedule.
I'm game too. I already have here that we're going to travel the country with a red bus and a blue bus, and people get to step on the buses, and then they get to see all the things they get on the red bus, which is nothing, and they get to step on the blue bus, which is filled with all kinds of delicious things. We're going to have the best snacks ever. I'm just saying.
You're right.
Honey buns and candy, gummy bears, and everything, and they're going to have nothing on that red bus.
I'm glad, and I'm glad tonight everybody tuned in to be on our fun bus.
So nice to see everyone.
So grateful. And if you're on Friday Power Lunch Substack, subscribe to Michelle. She's one of our just favorite people to have and on the show.
It's always delightful.
Oh, the Small Deeds Done. It's really a great way to live our life. It's super the way to be it. And if you're new to us, please subscribe to the Friday Power Lunch. We also have a live weekly Friday Power Lunch that we do. This is our Sunday night that we do our pundit casual gal get together, and we've been inviting special guests in. But every Friday at noon, you can dance in the room with us. We're going to have a great show. I think we have the Project Salt Box on this Friday, and we're going to have some special highlights around Women's History Month because it is March and that celebration. And we do, speaking of special elections, I want to call it Cheryl Smith in Virginia is running in a special that we can flip. I know a lot of people in this room love to flip red to blue. She's in a rural area in Pungo down in Virginia Beach. Look up Cheryl. I don't have the ability to put it in real quick here, but I'll send it out in the follow-up if you wanna make calls. We're gonna be making calls, Network Nova, a bunch of women, coalition. Michelle, your group can jump in with us. It's gonna be 15th and 16th, making calls for Cheryl, a concentrated time so we can have fun in the room. And then also we have the Yes campaign in Virginia that we have opportunities to help us save the nation.
Can I just say one thing? Because Laura M. has a way better turn of phrase than I had when I was saying this. She said, in a world of Melanias, be a dolly.
Be a dolly.
That is what I should have said,
Well,
friend.
and
Thank you.
yeah, be a doll. And, Belle
Be
is
a
smart.
doll.
She was
Yeah.
on I'll give, Belle a shout out on Friday. They love what she said about the ICE funding. She said, "If they want the money for whatever, just go and take all the funding out of that, the billions that too many. Just take all that money." It was a great idea that they're taking to the top. So, great to see everybody and have a great night, and as we roll into spring, tune in next Sunday and try to join us on the Friday on the one. And I will
You
put
should.
this
It's always fun. And you guys always have a dance party, which I love.
too, but I'll send out the links in the follow-up. All right, everybody. Good night.
Love you all. Take care.
Thank you, Michelle. Mwah.
Mwah.
Thank you.